Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 20 minutes after 10 o'clock. Now, this is not a news segment, but I wanted to read you a news headline from, let's see, today's what, the 17th? So this is from Saturday. Listen to this. North Korea condemns U.S. sanctions, warns denuclearization is at risk. Okay, does that sound like something scary? I thought the president had taken care of that whole problem, and now, of course, that guy Kim Jong-un is you knew not to be confident that anything he promised would be in place.
Exactly.
Gary Grossman has written a book that sort of kind of touches on North Korea and the nuclear threat. His book is called Executive Force. This is actually the third in a series. I think I have that right. I'm not sure. Gary is an Emmy Award-winning television producer, a print and television journalist, a film and television historian. He is such a prolific and he will hold your attention is his writing. Gary, good morning. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Good morning. It's great to be here with you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you've done.
And thanks for the introduction. I am just walking on air right now, and I'm on the air at the same time.
that's right. So your understanding of how to write a story and your understanding of the dynamics of the international relationships we have in this world now, especially when you look at the history, which is also an area of expertise for yourself. Is that how a story like this can seem to parallel what's really going on in the news?
Absolutely. Great question. What happens with me is, well, I come out of a background. My dad was in law enforcement. My mom was in politics. So already that intersect kind of just flows through me. Right. But also, if you start thinking the unthinkable, well, that's what we do as writers. That's what I'm sure when you start a segment, what are you thinking, where's it going to go? You come up with what's possible, and then pretty soon you get to what's likely, what's certain to be out there. And with my novels, I really began the same way I did television documentaries. Here's what we know. What don't we know? Who can I talk to who might know what we don't know? And then what can I glean from that? And it happens time and time again. On the first book, Executive Actions, I began exploring Russian sleeper cell spies in the United States. Well, we know they've been here, and we know they're here. The second book dealt with the power of radio influencing. Well, we know that's very true.
Absolutely.
The third book dealt with our most valuable and vulnerable natural resource, water, being a prime target for terrorists. And now Executive Force deals with North Korea, as you set it up. North Korea planning a plot that goes back 20 years or so, and it begins in a private school in Switzerland, where actually, although I fictionalized the school, where Kim Jong-un actually went to school. I have him meet a friend who bonds with him. Flash forward to 20 years later, the supreme leader now of North Korea is planning on ways to destabilize the United States, and he does it through his friend who he met in school many, many years ago. Well, that's what happens in real life.
Right.
We forge our relationships early, and we begin plotting what kind of lives we'll lead, and then often it leads to people being in power and being able to do some really horrible things. And Executive Force really strategically goes right into that.
I like the fact that your book is written like a play. You stage everything throughout the book. You give locations, dates, times, and I found that very intriguing.
Thank you. Well, I like to write in a filmic way, in a cinematic way. And the thriller genre, the political thriller genre, really lends itself to that, where you're jumping around, where multiple things happen in multiple places. I love James Bond. I'm a big fan of James Bond. But in truth, the world doesn't get saved by James Bonds. It gets saved by one person in one bureau of one part of the country, in the Defense Department or in Secret Service or in the FBI, who manages to talk to somebody else in another part of the country or another department, and they share information. Well, in the case of Executive Force, there's information being shared between primarily three people. One is Secret Service agent Scott Rourke. The other is a woman, Katie Kessler, who works at the Supreme Court. And the third is a CIA agent. And they begin really piecing things together. And that's what it really takes. I mean, it's kind of local police work on a national and an international scale. So thanks. That's why I jump around a lot, because different people are discovering or figuring out different things, and it goes all the way through Executive Force.
How much of the story is about the manipulation of the mindset of the American public?
Well, a great deal. And of course, every day there's news on how Russia has been doing that to the United States through, and today's news was they used virtually every social media outlet possible. Well, but that's nothing new to some extent. I mean, radio has done that since the 1930s with Father Coughlin, influencing political outcomes when FDR was president. Newspapers have done that. Television has done it. It's just that there's so many sets of facts these days, and so much information, and people tend to go for their own news source rather than, valuing a variety of news sources. So it just goes on and on and on. And with Executive Force, it's being done through another element of the book, and a part of real life, are the secessionist movements around the country, separatists.
Yeah.
And if you think, okay, they may come to their issue very proudly and with good reason, but what if they're being manipulated by a foreign government? What if they don't realize who's putting the money and the momentum into what they're doing? And again, that's part of real life. That's Executive Force.
Your characters are very driven in your book, but they do take time out for the personal.
Well, don't we all? Don't we have to? And again, another thing that separates maybe my writing with some of the great action movies we love, you have to take time out, and people do have lives, and they've got to juggle, worldwide problems and maybe the threat of nuclear war at the same time that they're dealing with, oh, honey, I've got to go pick up the food. Right. We all do that. And, interestingly, when I talk with the U.S. Navy was very, very helpful at the climax of the book. And in speaking with the Navy commander who I first worked with, and then she put me on to submarine command, and I got wonderful, wonderful information from them up to a point. They said, Gary, you've stumbled on something that is pretty sensitive, and we really can't talk much about. We can confirm the language you use,
really?
We can confirm settings, things of that sort. But, here are people who are very much in the know, and they've got their fingers close to whatever buttons that will hopefully protect us, and they've got the judgment not to press those buttons if they're not supposed to. But at the same time, they've all got real lives. In talking with these people who are, in nuclear submarines, they're saying, I can't wait to get back to port and spend time with my family.
Absolutely.
So that goes to your question.
Yeah.
We all real people.
And as far as just critiquing writing, I think that's important for us as readers. We like that stuff added to it. It's maybe what's it makes it endearing, I guess. Such a climactic, large-scale story is easier to relate to when you realize you got to go get the groceries too. You know, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Scott Rourke has a goal of starting a company and getting out of the Secret Service, which is a very real thing. I want to get out of what I'm doing. I want to move on. Something happens in the book that prevents him from doing that. The character has to deal with that disappointment, and again, another part of real life.
The book is called Executive Force. It's got a 5-star rating on Amazon. It's written by Gary Grossman. One reviewer says even nonfiction readers will enjoy this new thriller novel. And we'd like to give you the copy that was sent to us. So if I have one listener who would like it, just give us a call at 622-9622. I'll pick one caller at random, and the rest of us have to go buy it. Thank you so much for being on the air with us, Gary. Good luck with it.
Oh, thanks so much.
And come back with the next one.
Okay, I sure will, and happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you so much. All right,
bye-bye now.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Here is your 1-minute news brief. Governor-elect Ron DeSantis has named State Representative Danny Burgess, a member of the Army Reserves, to be his Veterans Affairs Director. A forklift accident at the Chewy Distribution Center in Ocala seriously injured